On October 7th, 2023, the latest escalation in the Israel-Hamas conflict began. Like most wars, this has had a profound impact not only on innocent civilians, but also on the wider economy. Already many countries and investors are worried about the fallout from this conflict. Geopolitical uncertainty can lead to a collapse in consumer confidence, leading to less economic activity and a potential recession. Before we get properly started, I'd like to reaffirm our commitment to unbiased and independent research. All content aims to evaluate both sides of any situation. As Israel is still reeling from the surprise attack, trade on the streets has completely collapsed. The initial conflict led to thousands of business closings and hundreds of cancelled flights. The few firms that remain open are likely to suffer from low demand and labor shortages. The Israeli government has mobilized a record 360,000 reservists, which may leave some firms short on staff. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. Settlements near the Lebanon and Gaza borders have been evacuated, leaving ghost towns behind. Tourism has completely evaporated as many have cancelled their trips. The hospitality sector was already badly damaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2019, Israel saw a record 4.5 million visitors. The sector provided almost 150,000 jobs and accounted for 2.6% of Israel's economy. War can often have a severe impact on markets as uncertainty grips investors. The Israeli shekel has fallen over 5% since the conflict began, and the Israeli stock exchange is also down 9%. Stock markets across the Middle East also fell amid concerns of a wider regional conflict. The precarious geopolitical situation has meant many investors are more risk-averse. Many have thus flocked to safer assets such as gold. A weaker currency makes imports more expensive and exports cheaper. This means consumers could suffer from higher inflation and less purchasing power, whereas exporters may see no benefit as economic activity in Israel has suffered. Firms may find it harder to gather funds for investment due to low confidence. However, in the current climate, it is unlikely many firms would be looking to expand. To support the shekel, the Israeli central bank has revealed a $45 billion package. It plans to sell off $30 billion of foreign reserves and provide $15 billion through currency swap. The shekel has been performing poorly this year due to earlier efforts of the government to restrict the judiciary. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has created a financial aid package worth 4.5 billion shekels. This plan will reimburse businesses who are struggling with lower revenues and high costs. Money will also be given to people who cannot return to their jobs. Tax breaks have also been given to relieve some pressure. VAT payments have been deferred and the negative income tax program has been expanded to include 300,000 more people. Negative income tax is a concept whereby the state guarantees money to low-income households, first proposed by economist Milton Friedman. Smotrich has also unveiled an 80 million shekel grant to displaced residents of communities close to the Gaza border. These schemes will come at a large cost to the government, with expenditure rising while tax revenue falls. It is estimated the war is costing Israel about 1 billion shekels a day. Smotrich has predicted the government's budget deficit could reach 3.5% of GDP, which is 2.2% above the previous target for 2023. Economists fear this figure could creep up to 7 to 8% of GDP in 2024. As a result, the S&P 500 Global Credit Ratings Agency has downgraded its credit outlook on Israel from stable to negative. The cost of insuring government debt has also surged, worsening the budget deficit. A persistent budget deficit could force austerity measures in the future, which damages living standards. In addition, the impact of Israel's security failure on October 7th is likely to lead to a huge rise in defense spending, which could pile further debt. Commodities tend to be highly price volatile. At the initial onset of the conflict, crude oil prices shot up before easing more recently. Gas markets have also reached an 8-month high. Higher energy costs may lead to severe inflation and a cost of living crisis. In 2022, Israel's cost of living was the highest amongst OECD countries. Its price levels were 38% higher than the OECD average. Housing costs and the price of everyday staples are becoming increasingly unaffordable for many. These conditions have led to social unrest, with protesters calling for rent control and more social housing. Tel Aviv, which is Israel's tech capital and second largest city, was ranked the most expensive city in the world by the Economist Intelligence Unit in 2021. To put the inflationary burdens into perspective, the Yom Kippur War in 1973 prompted an oil embargo from OPEC, sending oil prices through the roof. Although the war only lasted a month, it had a devastating impact on the world. In Britain alone, the crisis led to energy rationing, unemployment, and extreme inflation, which peaked at 24.5%. Nevertheless, it must be noted that oil is no longer so important to the global economy, as many countries are sourcing alternatives and energy efficiency has since improved. Global financial bodies appear to be notably pessimistic. The IMF has warned of further global repercussions, which include stubborn inflation and a potential refugee crisis. The president of the World Bank warns the Israel-Hamas conflict can deal a serious blow to global economic development. On the other hand, Israel does possess a robust economy, driven by its technology, defense, and diamond industries. Economic growth in 2023 is expected to be 2.3%, which is below the target 3% growth, but still avoids recession by a long shot. Now that we have covered Israel, we will explore how the war is set to impact Palestine. The Palestinian economy is already fragile and is set to face even more complications. Many Palestinians rely on international aid and remittances from family overseas. Israel has a strong grip over its economy. The shekel is the main currency used in Palestine, and 2/3 of its tax revenue is even collected by Israeli authorities. These revenues are supposed to be transferred over to Palestine, but have been delayed or frozen in the past. Many Palestinians in the West Bank also find employment in Israel. War will have a significant impact on civilians and essential infrastructure across Palestine. Many Palestinians in Gaza are facing dire food, energy, and water insecurity. Unemployment is also rampant. More than half of Gazans live in poverty. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development reported that Gaza itself would need billions in international aid to recover from the war. The supply of humanitarian aid into Gaza isn't always stable. Even before the war broke out, Gaza had been suffering from a 16-year-long blockade from Egypt and Israel. After war broke out, the Israeli government announced a complete siege of Gaza, cutting off electricity, water, and aid. Subsequent international pressure forced Israel to reopen the Rafah corridor from Egypt to limited aid, but critically, fuel shipments are still not allowed to pass. Due to the war, security crackdowns in the West Bank are likely to increase. This restricts movement, which may make finding work harder for many Palestinians. It also doesn't help that many Palestinian institutions are plagued by corruption. This makes many services inadequate and recovery even harder as funds are siphoned away. Foreign funding is helping keep low-income households and some services afloat for now. For example, Qatar spends over $10 million a month to support 100,000 of Gaza's poorest families and pays government workers such as teachers and doctors. Qatar also pays for some of Gaza's electricity. What will happen if this war intensifies? Well, no one knows the answer for certain. We do know that as we speak, Israel is preparing a ground offensive into Gaza. Much of Gaza is an urban and densely populated area. Although the Israeli military outclasses Hamas's fighters, urban warfare will be extremely bloody and difficult. According to military analysts, Hamas fighters will be dressed as civilians, making them difficult to identify. Also, Hamas may have weapons and equipment stored in civilian infrastructure such as schools and mosques. Hamas also has an extensive tunnel system underneath Gaza, which one expert described as Viet Cong times 10. If the war drags out, both civilian and military casualties will rise. The impact of human loss will be devastating for both Israel and Palestine. Moreover, the financial toll could be hefty. Money will be needed to fund the military, reconstruction, and compensate civilians. Even Joe Biden has warned Israel to avoid the mistakes made by the USA after the 9/11 attacks. He urged Israel not to be consumed by rage. The USA after 9/11 poured decades and trillions of dollars into fruitless war which has cost millions of lives. There are never any winners in a war. Many innocent civilians have lost their lives, and many more will suffer from economic fallout and distress. The history of this conflict is fraught with tragedy and violence. Numerous countries have already called for a ceasefire and a de-escalation to alleviate some of the suffering. For now, one can only naively hope a permanent solution could be found, where Israelis and Palestinians can peacefully coexist.